Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shyam Nathu, Business Development Manager at Spark IoT. Today I'm joined by Peter King, CEO of Cypher Robotics, and Luke Leon, Vice President of Operations at LFL Group, Canada's leading furniture retailer. Before I get started, I'd like you all to imagine that you're in a warehouse or a retail floor where autonomous robots aren't just assisting with pick and pack, but learning from every movement, predicting demand, optimizing routes, or working around the clock with precision and agility. The future of supply chain won't be built by those who wait for change. It will be led by those who design it. Today we're going to explore how robotics is reshaping the supply chain industry, all the way from an initial pilot to a full-scale implementation, redefining not just how we move goods, but how we move the industry forward. Over the session, what we'll cover is the challenge in supply chain and why cycle counting matters, the Cypher solution journey, hear first-hand results and impacts from LFL Group and customers here in New Zealand, followed by a Q&A. Now for the Q&A, I'd like you all, through the application that you've got for the event, to go to the specific breakout session, Supply Chain Revolution, and you can load your questions in through that portal there. That will be moderated and then come back through to us to answer. So I'd like to now pass on to Luke and Peter to take us through the presentation.
Thank you, Shyam. At the end of the day, I'm just going to give everyone a little bit of a rundown on what LFL Group is. Again, any speaking engagement I've ever been in, I've never quite had a view of a harbor and the beauty of what you guys are seeing right now, so really appreciate the time. LFL Group is Canada's largest furniture company. It's comprised of 11 different divisions. It started with Leon's Furniture originally, and we are kind of 1-2 in mass market retail for furniture, mainly through a couple different brands, Leon's Furniture, The Brick, and then also in commercial appliances through a couple different divisions called Appliance Canada and another one called Mid-Northern. The sort of remaining 7 sort of divisions are all within our ecosystem of kind of support for mainly those 4 main lines of business. When we look geographically across Canada, amazing country, very similar to Auckland. We have a couple islands, one on the east coast and one on the west coast, obviously very small. That being said, very geographically diverse country, so enormously wide. That being said, almost all of our 40+ million population really centers right around that kind of 49th parallel across the board. When we're looking at our business, due to that size, we've had to build warehouses and distribution centers at a number of points from the east coast to the west coast. So we have about 11 million square feet of showrooms, and that's across 300 retail locations, and about 4.5 million square feet of warehouse and distribution space, and that's both in a centralized distribution network with our Brick division, and then a decentralized distribution network across our Leon's division. At the end of the day, I guess maybe kind of the reason that I'm here is I think I was probably a little bit of the pilot program here with Peter over the last couple of years, but our original conversation started with the problem that we were really trying to solve, which was when we looked at the Canadian population and the demographic of that population and ultimately what was an aging population. From a retail perspective, we knew that labor hours were just becoming more and more critical, and how could we reallocate a lot of those labor hours across our network of stores and about 10,000 plus associates. And that was sort of the original lens, obviously focusing on that customer experience. And when we looked within our warehouse, which is, from a labor hour perspective, would certainly be the largest number on our P&Ls, we sort of decided, okay, well, what is it that we could possibly do to reduce what is an enormous amount of kind of hand bombing of inventory and moving inventory and cycle counting. And all of our inventory historically has always been counted. Every single piece of about 500 million in inventory at any given time, we cycle count 20% of our inventory every day. So over a 5-day period, we're obviously going to hit 100% of our inventory, and that again is really focused around kind of customer experience, commission sales environment, as well as incentive drivers. So inventory is absolutely critical to us, as I'm sure it is to everybody. Because our business is about 115 years old, The good news is we put up lots of buildings all over the country. The bad news is we put up a lot of those buildings in the 70s and the 80s, and retrofitting warehouses for automation, for anybody that's had the opportunity to kind of look through that process, is a very challenging and obviously capital intensive type of resources. So as we sort of looked through and we looked at our warehouses, we have what are 8-foot wide bins. Vast majority of any distribution center now in Canada anyways, everything's going to be about 12 feet plus. And when we were trying to reduce the overall cycle counting, we, again, kind of whole bunch of different strategies and ideas around that, but ultimately it was, well, if we could just take pictures of everything, that would work. And we had originally met with Apple, who, through an entire process, eventually introduced us to Peter and team. And the labor hours that we were able to save and reduce from not having to cycle count was very, very significant for a public company. That being said, not counting the inventory was not an option. And that's really where our meeting with Indro and Cypher kind of came into play. So they were, at the end of the day, we interviewed probably 10, 15 different companies. Cypher was the only company that could actually put robots in our warehouses, in our narrow aisles, without disrupting our operation overall. When, again, I think we've talked a good bit about this, but as we cycle count, our ERP basically is not of use, not in use during that count, just because, again, certainly don't want to disrupt that. By putting in the Cypher robots, we were able to reduce our cycle count from a manual perspective in terms of actual humans to 0. And we were able to take the cycle time from the 5 days, few hours every day per store, down to what's essentially an hour and 20 minutes of a robot moving throughout our showrooms, cycle counting, pinging all of our RFIDs, and able to go from there. Our typical showroom is about 5,000 square feet. 5,000 SKUs. They range anywhere from about 3,500 to 8,000 SKUs, and our typical warehouse showroom size, is about 45,000 square feet. So, what did we learn? We learned an enormous amount in terms of not only kind of hurdles, as obviously you're putting in any type of new innovation, but also a lot of our original thought processes about how our teams and associates might interact were the exact opposite of what we were anticipating. So our thought was, we're going to need to run these robots at night. There's no way that we can ever let anybody know what we're, that we're kind of shifting some of those labor hours and labor responsibilities. But it was actually the exact opposite. The labor teams and all of our associates actually embraced the robots, and so did our customers. And we actually run them now during the day, just because our customers and some of their families actually literally will follow the robot around the showroom as it's pinging and cycle counting. And I know that doesn't sound overly exciting, but it's certainly something that's pretty new for the first time as people are seeing it. So we have two different Cypher solutions in our stores right now. So I believe on the top there, you see the AMR, which is a tethered drone, which I believe is downstairs right now. And then we also have the Captus RFID model, which is what goes throughout our showrooms. The Captus RFID model, there's a whole roadmap that I'm assuming Peter's going to probably talk a little bit about. But again, that robot has taken our cycle count time down to about an hour and 20 minutes, 100% of our showroom, 100% of our warehouse, and accuracy is about 99.8%. I'm not going to, necessarily say that the 0.2% is on Cypher. It's actually on us internally, just in terms of where things are being tagged, so on and so forth. The other huge advantage that we've actually been able to have for putting those tags on a lot of the on almost all of the inventory now is just by being able to put access points in our warehouses. So we move about 16 million units a year, inbound and outbound. Those access points over top of warehouse doors has completely, I don't want to say 100%, but pretty close to 100%, eliminated the need for our teams to be able to receive product in using scanners, and then obviously scanning product on the way out as well. So at that point, I'm going to pass it over to Peter.
Thanks, Luke. So my name is Peter King. I'm the founder here at Cypher Robotics. I've had the pleasure to work with Luke here now for a couple of years. Luke and I tell a slightly different story about how we met. He's a little modest, but when we first met through Apple, through Rogers, they were also looking at a private 5G network that looking for some cool things to do with it, which we do quite well. During the discussions, Luke comes to me and says, "Hey, I'd like to put drones in my warehouse." And after I stopped laughing at him, we finally went out to visit a warehouse and got to see his warehouse a little bit more. And I said, "You know how hard drones are?" And he says, "You know, take a look at what we do." Excuse me. We did, and he was definitely onto something. And you know, we've had a bit of a road. So, you know, the discussion that we're having today is about how to get out of the proof of concept realm, right? So everybody here has looked at automation. I think the percentage that I've learned of POCs that make it beyond the proof of concept stage is about 27% globally. So 73% fail at that proof of concept stage. And it's not because the tech is bad, and it's not because you know, it's not solving a big problem. It's mainly because they're not implemented properly. We're not seeing the total advantage. So we've had the opportunity to work with LFL and their group, very large network, and totally understand what the problem was. And so for those of you guys looking to do automation and looking to get these solutions built, it did take a little bit of time, but I would say that it was totally worth it from scale. So what's come out of this is we've had an opportunity to work with Luke and his team to create a couple of solutions that were mostly customer driven, obviously solving the problem first, right? So a lot of tech companies out there are trying to build a problem or build a solution and find a problem, but I think what we've been able to accomplish is more on the other side. Take a real customer problem that we didn't know was as big a problem as it is, and apply some really cool technology to make that problem a little bit easier. So it was a really interesting discussion in the beginning. You know, when we had this conversation with the LFL team, I said, "Well, how accurate is your inventory today?" They said, "Well, we're about 99.6% accurate." I said, "Oh, that's really good. How often are you counting your inventory?" "Well, we do 20% every single day." I said, "Whoa, what do you need us for?" Right? The answer was, it's really difficult for us to get there. It's not the most favorite job of employees. It's not something that they enjoy doing. It creates turnover. We've got peak season that creates a need to bring in more seasonal workers. That creates, you know, a few headaches as well. And so over this journey with the LFL team, we've partnered closely with them and have created a solution now that Luke has kind of mentioned. There are a couple of solutions that we've been able to implement, one being an RFID solution for inventory control, and one is a vision system that you see with the drone here. And so the idea behind these is that we've been able to create multiple solutions that are customer focused to get into these arenas. I know this sounds a little salesy, but you know, Luke's talking a little bit about the solution that we put in, and we want to make sure that you understand what that is. But those two solutions are something that has now created an environment for most retailers, distribution networks, 3PLs, and the big answer now is, you know, this has been implemented. It is something that is ready for use in masses. And you know, one of the things that we hear a lot about in this industry is, you know, the technology is not ready. And what we actually find is that the majority of the organizations looking at technology like this isn't that it's not that it doesn't solve their issue, it's the change management internally. And so I think from the LFL group, what we saw is a different mindset that was, hey, we're ready for change. We are the best in the industry at what we do today. We are 99% accurate. We count 20% of all of our inventory every single day. And yet, for us to be a better business, we understand that if we want to stay competitive in the marketplace and we want to stay ahead of our, ahead of our competitors, not only do we need to change the things that we're really bad at, but let's take a look at the things that we're the best at in the industry and create an even better solution that then allows us to stay that much further ahead of our competition. And so that's what I think we've created here in this product line. So the impact for Leon's that I think everybody wants to understand, how does this impact your business long term. So Luke talked a little bit about the showroom, okay? And so the very first metric that we would take a look at is that a showroom at Leon's is approximately 3,500 to 5,000 pieces of furniture in a showroom today. That would take a week for the sales team and the warehouse team to count. Nobody enjoyed doing it. So just from that perspective, the LFL team saw quite quickly that there's a way to make the team happier, give them the ability to not do this on a day-to-day basis, get them out on the sales floor, have them interacting with clients, have them doing some of the other tasks that they would prefer to do. And then what we learned really quickly is that the technology could take that timeline from 1 week to 1 hour. And so that efficiency gain allowed all of the sales reps and the warehouse staff to become much happier in their role because no longer were they counting it. The other outcome that came from this is the LFL team has a ton of accessories. Now, the accessories within the showrooms are something that they didn't want to count. It's very difficult, time-consuming, and very challenging to get to that 20%. So the accessories would actually get counted once a year. It was the anomaly within the business. Within that 1 hour timeline, we were able to count all of those accessories as well. So you can imagine going from counting annually to we started once a day counting everything. What we've learned is we didn't actually need to run the robot as much as necessary. And so from the onset, we did have a little pushback internally, but I would say that the LFL team has been quite open to that change. So the initial naysayers within the warehouse, within the first couple of weeks, mindsets started to change a little bit. They start to see how this impacts their day-to-day, because a lot of the times we see that warehouse managers or operations managers, or those that tend to be overworked and feel like they're underpaid or might be underpaid, have a difficult time with change because they feel like that responsibility tends to, weigh on their shoulders. And I think what's happened really quickly is they see that this has become a big improvement in their world. So the outcome has been happier employers, happier employees, a much faster count time, more accurate inventory, and all of that being possible just by changing a little mindset that says, hey, if we were to change this, how does that impact our business? We have had, sorry, Shalom, I think this is you.
Go for it, Peter.
Okay. We do have some experience here in New Zealand. This is another success story of ours. Now, LFL and team have been wonderful for us, but we are here in New Zealand, so we certainly want to tell the story. I'm sure everybody has seen the media attention that's come through what we've done with Air New Zealand here as well. And so a very strong conversation and a very strong program with them. We were actually able to take their inventory from about 85% accurate to 100% accurate within a 2-week timeline of us getting started with what they were doing. So a pretty strong success story here in New Zealand as well. And again, just mainly because of some change management mindset internally.
Perfect. Thanks, Peter. Cool. So Peter's mentioned, and I will pass back to you to take you through the results from Air New Zealand, but the challenge that Air New Zealand had was that there was a high stock variance inside their warehouse, and that was at the Auckland Airport facility. It's about 5,000 square metres worth of facility, and they required a 1 yearly shutdown, so they could only do it once a year, a full shutdown of their facility, in order to stock take what was happening on that site. Peter will get into the results of that in a few moments. And the type of inventory that was stored within this warehouse was mission critical to their above wing operations. So when we say above wing, we're talking about anything that goes into that aircraft. So that could be a blanket, it could be the life jacket, it could be an oxygen mask, it could be the lollies or the beers and wines that we all look forward to on our flights. So I'm going to get into the underpinning technology. So Air New Zealand combined both a private 5G network along with robotics to enhance the inventory accuracy. So private 5G and IoT are allowing ports, factories, and distribution centres to operate with unprecedented precision. I'd like you all to imagine that a private network where every forklift and drone communicates securely and instantly, orchestrating itself without human intervention. Air New Zealand don't just imagine it, they live in it. Their solutions demand ultra-low latency, a dedicated network isolated from the public with zero interference, reliable coverage specifically in their warehouse environment, with real-time data transmission and security and performance guarantees. On the right side, you'll see some speed tests and signal strength picked up throughout the Air New Zealand warehouse, running on a private 5G network. Now, I'd highly recommend those interested in finding out more about what private 5G can do for your organisation to attend the Beyond Speed session, which is happening at 2:30 p.m. in the main stage, led by Liz Urquhart, Stephanie Kanine, and Ludwig from Ericsson. With that, I'll pass back to Peter to talk through the results from Air New Zealand.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what impact we've had with LFL. Same thing. So with some great people at Air New Zealand, opening mindset, looking into change as well. We learned a few big things about their facilities and their business. So what they had previously done was a stock take once a year. It was something that you don't know what you don't know about your inventory until you go and have that stock take once a year. We learned from them, same ideas. Nobody enjoyed doing the stock take once a year. Throughout the year, they would find multiple products in the wrong bin locations. They would find issues with customer service. So one of the big complaints was Coca-Cola, believe it or not. They had a plane go out without Coca-Cola, and it became a big headache. Not something that I would understand in our world, but it's definitely a metric they never want to see happen again. And so from a customer experience point of view, we don't understand how much inventory these airlines hold and how important it can be to them. So we're talking airline parts, we're talking about lubricants, we're talking about the packages that they give you on the planes, and it's all about customer experience. And so that was the big thing coming out of Air New Zealand. What they learned quite quickly is that what they were doing around counting inventory every once in a while was becoming a real headache, because once you place something in the wrong bin location, you tend to write it off if you can't find it. So at the end of the year, they were writing off product that potentially was still in the warehouse, it shouldn't have been written off, maybe expiring because they just couldn't find it properly. Making them sound really bad. They're not. They're actually quite good at what they do. But an 85% accurate inventory is just not where you want to keep your inventory. And so we were able to go in. We slowed our process down just to help them out a little bit. We were able to count 288 bins a night is where we landed with them. It was kind of the sweet spot for how they could complete variants afterwards. And within a 2-week timeline, we were able to help them manage their inventory appropriately enough that at the end of that 2 weeks to the rest of the time that we've been dealing with them, their inventory continues to stay at 100% on a regular basis. Okay, and so this has helped them from a number of things in that we've increased their inventory accuracy. We're helping them take less write-offs in the inventory. Now that write-off could be shrinkage, it could be due to mistakes, it could be due to vendors not sending the right number and just missing it at these times. So being able to go in and count the inventory, we were able to fly our system or run our system for about an hour a day. That's turning it down a little bit, which is great, but within an hour a day, we can count the warehouse once every 10 days. And so this eliminated a full stock take for them annually. Now, for those of you in the industry, you know that means shutting the facility down, getting an all-hands-on-deck approach, having your employees work overtime, and it stretches out from a number of different factors. So being able to eliminate that annual stock take, increase their inventory accuracy, all because of a mindset that says, hey, how do we get out of proof of concept phase and into challenging ourselves to improve through automation. So what does the path to full implementation look like? And so this is what I had mentioned. 73% of POCs just, they get hung out to die. So going in with the right mindset around how these POCs should work is definitely the first stage to success beyond a POC phase. So if you're doing a POC just to test, I would suggest doing a little bit more homework ahead of time just to make sure that you understand what the outcomes are and what's going to happen afterwards. And I would find that most POCs die not asking the question, how do we approach this once we see success? Okay, and so I get this quite a bit. Well, can we run a POC? And I would ask the question, okay, well, how do we handle, the 24 hours after the POC? And a lot of customers will come back and say, well, we'll regroup and talk about what we do at that time. I said, well, if we take a look at this metric now, and we're all prepared afterwards, you'll have two organizations that are aligned and understand how to move it out of that POC phase into real success. And two things are going to happen. The company that you're doing the POC with is going to fail miserably. It's going to happen. Maybe it's not the right use case. And you get to walk away. That's what a POC is for. But for those really looking to implement automation and get to the next level in your business, I would say that little key around what happens after the POC and planning that ahead of time is going to be the metric that creates success in how you manage these POCs. And so this is the key to how we scale. Okay, so where are we starting? How does the POC work? Are we aligned on what those KPIs and metrics look like? And if we hit them, where do we go from here? Okay, and I think that's the piece that a lot of businesses have missed. And I got to credit both LFL and Air New Zealand for stating those terms, right? So what does success look like and how do we continue moving on from there? So from a readiness perspective, obviously we've talked about Air New Zealand. For those here, obviously Cypher is here in New Zealand. It's our third country that we're willing to go into. This isn't meant to be a sales pitch though, so for those that are interested, definitely come and talk to us. But if you are looking at other automation and other efficiencies to run within your business, again, just making sure that you do that due diligence ahead of time to make sure that the business that you're dealing with is ready within your application, and asking those questions, what's next, is going to go a long way to helping solve those problems.
Yeah. Just like to add that Spark is really lucky to have vendors like Peter and Cypher Robotics that help customers during this POC phase to implement the technology. So with that, I think we're ready to move on to the Q&A session. So head over to the Q&A, please. Believe there's questions coming through the screen. Cool. Julian asks, there are a lot of financially stressed retail businesses. Do you see Cypher as a tool that can be used to help these businesses effect a rapid turnaround in their inventory management and reduce their costs? Peter?
Yes. I mean, every situation is a little different. But I would suggest, and Luke can chime in here where I'm wrong, it's his business more than mine. But I think we're in a problem that I would say is probably the second biggest issue, not issue, I don't want to call it an issue, but the second biggest potential issue within an organization, right? So the most important thing in your business, obviously, are people. But if you hold inventory, I would say that's going to be the second most important piece to your business. It's how you earn a revenue, right? So keeping track of it has significant inputs to your business, from a inventory control, a shrinkage, mistakes, but realistically your customer experience. There's a number of things that I could talk to. And so, yes, when we see a problem that is this big, I would say, we're not adding cost to businesses. We're looking to find ways to reduce that stress immediately.
Perfect. Luke, anything to add?
I was just gonna. I think every retailer is always looking, from a margin perspective, where are we leaking? Where can we gain year over year? And I think, that inventory management piece, even if you're only moving the needle a couple of points from a margin perspective, it's huge dollars. Whether that's from shrink and or just a much better customer experience by ensuring that the right inventory is in the right place at the right time and fully aligns with your ERP on the back end, and obviously almost a second level of redundancy from an inventory perspective in terms of having Cypher be able to produce that data and those points for you every day, or as we learned, not necessary 5 days a week, but certainly 1 day a week, is a massive value add to really providing the necessary data that you need to continue to be successful as a retailer.
Perfect. Thanks, Luke. Brendan asks, was the narrow aisles beneficial and enabled you to scan both sides at the same time? Luke, do you want to take that? Or Peter?
So the question is just relating to beneficial for, I think, was the narrow aisle? So narrow aisles are actually beneficial for us because we were the only ones that were able to do it. So yes, I would say that was a big factor for LFL when we came over. Same with Air New Zealand. We knew that we had to solve that problem right away. And to add about scanning both sides at the same time, yes, that is a distinct advantage when we do get smaller. It does allow us to scan twice as much inventory at the same time as long as we've got that approach. So I see where the question is going. Yes, if we had 11-foot aisles, which is pretty standard, it's difficult to do both sides for sure.
Perfect. Ross asked, you mentioned RFID on warehouse doors and showroom floors. What is the range of RFID chips and scanners? Also, what was the transition to RFID inventory management like? Any issues or learnings to share? And finally, what is the reliability of RFID chips and how do you test or address RFID reliability? So I think there's a few parts there. Luke, did you want to take that?
Yeah, I think for anybody that's ever implemented RFID, the truth of the matter is it's a very fun experience. That being said, it is labor intensive. I can tell you when we switched over, again, let's call it a roughly 50,000 square foot showroom, and we'll kind of go with the same metric from a warehouse on our decentralized network, so about a 50,000 square foot warehouse, 44-foot ceilings. It's a full day. Again, I don't want to sugarcoat it or not tell you the truth. It is certainly a full day because you're going SKU or piece of inventory by piece of inventory, not necessarily SKU by SKU. So now really what you're doing is you're adding very unique identifying numbers to each individual SKU, which is where you get the real-time visibility and movements of all of your product. So yes, it is fun. It's got to be something that you and your teams embrace. It is change management. It is culture. But at the end of the day, there's a huge benefit that's not too far down the horizon once you make that move, and once you are able to kind of label all of your inventory, and it doesn't just go to things like Cypher and the drones. Again, kind of going back to a whole bunch of other processes that are in any kind of back of house, certainly from a retail perspective and distribution side. It's every time you're moving product and where is it and where what location is it in, but then also everything on the inbound and the outbound side. So, I think in terms of the range, I might let Peter talk about the range of Cypher. In terms of the way that we have it set up, is we have access points built across the top of all of our warehouse stores, both on the inbound and the outbound side. So as product is kind of loaded on a dock and ready to move, it aligns with our ERP, so we know which trucks we're checking out. We move from a delivery side, about 1,100 26-foot trucks every day, full of, let's call it about 20 to 22 customer orders. As soon as the product goes through those APs, it is basically scanned, pinged, however you want to say it, so that it actually shows that the product has now moved from dock to truck number 001. In terms of the Cypher's kind of length, I'll leave that over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Luke. So from a range perspective, each RFID unit has a different range. The little handhelds that you guys have obviously seen, I think there's one downstairs.
There's a couple downstairs.
Probably about a meter, typically. We figured out that if you put some equipment on a robot, it's no longer a handheld. It's not people. So we get about 20 meters with ours. And that's really helped us make sure that we really speed up our time. So it's kind of like, remember the old bag phones? Do we have bag phones here? Big 3-watt ones. Everyone says they're really dangerous to put to your ear. Kind of the same realm. So in the world of RFID, there's definitely a lot of different technology. If you're not holding it, we get to go a little stronger. So, a little advantage for our robot.
The only other thing I was just going to add, sorry, Peter, is, when we were trying to do show and tells and kind of demonstrations to our teams, the biggest issue that we had with Cypher was that we couldn't actually do a live show and tell because we would move 250, just the tags, 250 RFID tags into a room. And as we try to place it throughout the room, every item had already been scanned. So in terms of, from a demonstration side, it was great because we were scanning over 100 pieces a second. But in terms of the kind of unique beep that we were sort of hoping to kind of hear and show, from a show and tell, didn't actually work out, but it was obviously a positive at the end of the day.
I guess I can comment on a couple little things. So RFID does not do well with water, liquids, doesn't do well with metal, typically. Now, there are some manufacturers out there that have done a great job of providing some additional types of tags. What we're seeing is a lot of different variations come out that help solve that. So one of the issues that we did have, so those of you in the retail environment, one of the big questions at LFL was how we're going to deal with appliances, right? RFID tags don't tend to do quite well with metal. We have some really strong partners in the manufacturing game. We were able to find some tags quite quickly that are able to do those. So we're finding, especially as the technology becomes more implemented, that we're solving a lot of those issues as well.
The next question from Mitch is, what's the typical cost of RFID tags? Presumably, as stock is receipted, they would be required. Is there any use cases for FMCG where there can be many variations of SKUs and units of measures? So I can probably answer the first part of the question, which is what is the typical cost for an RFID tag? So an RFID tag, depending on the type of tag you're deploying, so there's two types of tags. There's passive RFID, which is what we're most commonly talking about here today, and you get active RFID. In passive RFID, depending on your scale, those tags can range anywhere from 50 cents to a few dollars, depending on the type of tag. Most RFID tags will be in that sub 10 to 20 cent range, and then you start to add different variations of those. And presumably, as stock is receipted, I'm assuming that's when you implement the tag onto the items. So yes, Luke, did you want to take that?
Yes, so for product that's actually sold and potentially customer pickup, those units, of course, it's certainly one-time use. For those RFID tags though that are on in inventory and then distributed across your network, you very potentially could have multiple use cases as it's moving from kind of warehouse to warehouse or distribution center to distribution center. But for the most part, it's certainly one-to-one, especially on the, again, assuming receipted means sold, then, it is one-time use at that point.
Yeah. Cool. Peter, do you want to take any use cases for FMCG and variations of SKUs and units of measure? So any use cases for FMCG, so types of inventory for RFID. Sorry, can someone clarify what they mean by that question? Fast move. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that? Yeah, fast-moving consumer goods. Oh, so just a lot of throughput. Can you go back? So any use case for fast-moving?
Any specific use cases for fast-moving goods?
Can I think about it for a second?
Yep.
I'm trying to think of the fast-moving consumer goods as. Oh, food products. Oh, okay. So right off the top of my head, yes. When we're talking about product expiry dates, making sure that we get these tags in and out quite quickly, especially if we're able to count the inventory quite a bit more often. That's a big deal in how much product you're going to write off, stock, that sort of thing. Being able to quickly identify batched products within food products, right? So talking with a major retailer in North America that had a big recall and understanding, all of the products within that recall and trying to find them in the warehouse. Yes, you need to have a clean warehouse to do this, and most have a really good process. But in the more manual scanning process, when you've got a big recall and a lot of inventory on hand, that can be a challenge. RFID can be implemented within, food products at each stage as well. Okay, so we had a big peanut butter recall in North America not too long ago that was causing, I'm not going to say it because I I'm not sure it's true, but caused some issues. So peanut butter, trying to figure out what stores did all of the peanut butter go to. So through the supply chain, having the ability to see where it went from the warehouse into the logistics provider to distribution center or store locations, and understanding where all of those items are is done really quickly through something like this, where in the traditional manual scan, it's a much more manual process to try to get those food items out, for example. And then obviously with food coming in and out of distribution facilities, having something like RFID that is able to tell you immediately what's coming through your door versus tearing down pallets and scanning and trying to counter inventory as it comes in, or your ingredients, those sorts of things. So there's a lot of use cases around how much quicker we can get product to market with something like an RFID that makes your team more efficient.
I don't know if you've had a chance to come to see the farm to fridge display downstairs. But we've got a number of RFID displays down there around traceability of, as Peter mentioned, defected goods, as well as stock taking in a retail environment as well, utilising RFID. Alice asks, you mentioned naysayers, but also that removing the mundane task for stock counts was welcome. What was the biggest grumble and key learnings of dealing with it? Luke?
Oddly, I think the grumble was almost the exact same of, oh my goodness, I really do not like cycle counting. I wish I never had to do this. And then as soon as we tell everybody, guess what, we got great news for you. You don't need to do this. It's, well, that's my job. That's my responsibility. So then it was really, just from a culture perspective, ensuring that everybody understood it was a reallocation of labor hours, not necessarily a removal of those labor hours. And again, based on the Canadian climate, I guess we'll say, it's certainly an option that we're very fortunate to have to, based on turnover and everything else, to be able to certainly reallocate a lot of those labor hours. But again, it was really just ensuring that our associate groups were well aware of why we're doing it, fully transparent in advance. There's absolutely nobody's going to lose their job over this. Yes, we are going to reallocate labor hours. We don't know exactly to what yet. That being said, here's some really cool technology. Here's things everybody's kind of been asking for and tasks that they don't want to do. So that was certainly one of our largest learnings. And, oddly, again, our teams have embraced it, far to a level that certainly exceeded what we were anticipating.
Yeah. Thanks, Luke. Another one for you. Mitch asks, can you briefly describe how you approached your wider supply chain /ERP integration, and do you have any key learnings from it?
For sure. So in terms of ERP integrations, I always laugh with Peter saying, I've been fortunate to work with the same company for 30 years, and I've been able to move from kind of sweeping floors and cleaning bathrooms, driving trucks to, leading IT groups and supply chain and things along those lines. From an ERP integration, if you ask me to do any task at all in our company, my hand would be up. I can't wait. ERP integrations are, again, we'll go back with the earlier phrase, a lot of fun. Trying to be able to certainly align 11 different divisions with one ERP. We did have a very good support system through a back end through our ERP provider, which is a company called Blue Yonder. That being said, the results far outweighed any and all of the pain points, just in terms of all the other doors that it opens up for us to be able to do things like our smart RFID, things like Cypher, et cetera. So yes, definitely some sleepless nights, a few more than a few. That being said, the benefits certainly far outweigh what those pain points were.
You make us sound pretty bad there. Sleepless nights through Cypher?
No. Oh, I thought we were talking about ERPs.
Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely not with Cypher.
To clarify, I'm just kidding. To clarify, the integration with us to ERP is an hour. It's our job to work with your ERP, not your job to make it work with ours. That's a key integration element from us. Luke does tell me the story of when he did switch his ERP internally, and sounds like nothing I ever want to handle, for sure. But for clarity, we're pretty easy to work with.
So I'm going to apologize. I read that in Canadian. So 100% my bad. In terms of the integration within Cypher, the truth of the matter is this. We spoke to a number of robotics companies to be able to help us solve this problem, even prior to Cypher. There was things like the kind of narrow aisles and things along those lines, but there was also this approach of, we built a robot, this is how it works, and therefore this is how you have to use it, which quite honestly just did not fit with our business. It just wasn't an option to be able to adjust all of our processes around what other, what very, very intelligent individuals, but, the process that they had built. And that was quite honestly the biggest differentiator between Cypher and some of those other companies was, Peter and group were basically, rolling up their sleeves, ready to kind of help understand our processes and then be able to adapt their technology to those processes to ensure it worked within our ERP.
Much better.
There we go.
Perfect. Now that that's all clarified, Peter, question for you. We've obviously talked very heavily around the use of robotics and RFID in a warehousing retail environment, but can the Cypher solution work outdoors, or is it in buildings only?
So at the moment, the robots that we have built are mostly indoor, but we've identified some really big use cases outside and are working on solutions that will very shortly work outdoors. So yes, we find a lot of really strong use cases outdoors as well. So
Perfect. So if you've got an outdoor requirement, reach out to us and we'll have a chat. Final question on the board, just in conscious of time. Luke or Peter, could you share what the expectation of an ROI would look like from a solution deployed?
I'll let you drive that one.
okay, so for what we do, the ROI is a few different things. So first thing is obviously a direct comparison to what you're currently doing today. We find that we have two types of clients. There's the Leons of the world that are 99.8% accurate, that spend a ton of money to get there. It's very costly, high turnover rates with employees that don't enjoy doing what they're doing. It's a very difficult process to manage to stay that good. So dollar for dollar, when we come in, the ROI is pretty significant and quickly. I can't give you a dollar figure immediately because every business is a bit different that way. But the number is pretty significant right from day one, I would say. The second type of client that we take on is the one that's really bad. Let's call it 70, 75% accurate. The only client that we've had that's like in between is Air New Zealand at 85, but everybody's like 70 or 99. There seems to be very few in between. And those at the 70%, they learn very quickly, not only is there a strong cost savings immediately, but it's all of the other parts of their business that they didn't realize were bleeding that come from inventory management, right? So everything from employee processes and satisfaction to shrink, to mistakes that create shrink, to customer complaints, right? So there's nothing worse than your customer looking up on your website that you've got product in stock, to get to the store location, it's not there, or try to order it online. And so the ROI we find is a little different from business to business, but it's very rare that we find someone on either side that doesn't have a strong use case for strong inventory management. So it sounds a little wishy-washy. I wish I could just give you, hey, we save you 18%, on day 2, but it is a little different for each business.
Yeah, and I think, Luke, you could probably touch on what that ROI was for you.
Yeah, from kind of internal processes, we, with every project, we have our kind of ROIC number, and if it's, any project that's above that ROIC, fantastic, we're ready to engage. If it's below it, unfortunately, it's just not something for us. In terms of our project with Cypher, the upper boundary of what we were anticipating, we're about 3.5x of what we were anticipating. And again, part of that might be because of the labor savings that obviously we were able to see literally almost on day one. That being said, it exceeded far away and exceeded our expectations. So
we have that on film, right? So for the next negotiation.
It's, it only plays in New Zealand, though. It's
Yeah.
not
Okay.
copyrighted here.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. With that, I'd like to thank both Luke and Peter for being here today. They've flown all the way from Canada, and Luke is spending more time in the air over the last few days than you will have spent on the ground. Is that correct? Yeah. Look, I really encourage you to have a chat with myself, Peter, or Luke throughout the rest of the day. Peter's with us for the rest of the event, and Luke's got to jump on that plane all the way back to Canada. So please reach out to us. Before we do that, I'd like to token of appreciation for your travels. Thanks, gents.
Thanks, John.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.